Okay, welcome to ENG3E Term 2A. I'm your instructor, Mike Laverty, delivering you another quality presentation from WASA Distance Education. So I was unfortunately sick for a couple of days, so did not have our regular broadcast Thursday. So here we are on a bit of a different Friday and broadcasting class number 8. The last one for Unit 1 in ENG3E. So we got Unit 1 wrapped up after this, so we're making our way through the course. And in Class 7, I talked about writing an outline for your culminating activity, how to get yourself on the right foot for that activity, finding the plot, the characters, the theme, the conflict, the setting, and then, using that as a base to jump off of, right? So getting a destination point, starting your journey off on the right foot. So with your map in front of you. And so even then, like you might not know exactly where you want your story to go, but you've got a starting point and you got things to ground you, right? And it's like, you shouldn't be writing, like things that are really far removed from your outline. You should try to stick to it. It'll give you a game plan. And like I said, halfway through, after you write a few paragraphs, you might want to change the focus of your story in a bit, but that's why it's important to think about your outline and draft up a really useful one that's going to help you, right? So today I'm going to take my outline and I'm going to use that as an example for how I can write a story with it. How I can look back on my life and write a story about who I was and again, who I was, who I am, how the world shaped who I was, and then how I shaped the world too, right? So it's so how the world shapes me, how I shape the world I live in, the person I am, right? So there's all kinds of conflicts in there, right? So there's the way you fit into the world, the way the world fits in with you. There's your inner world, your thoughts, your feelings. There's the outer world, the one you live in, the town you live in. There's the conflict of who you are now versus who you are then, right? So we're getting into some really deep questions, and it's it can be hard, it can be fun, and that's what one of the most useful ways we can use writing is to explore our own life and to get things down on the page. And, we may not have seen things a certain way. We end up teaching ourselves things when we write, which is really cool, right? So we use writing as a tool for figuring out what we want to say, right? Or what we think, or to solve a problem, right? So it's very useful. So just keep that in mind as you go along. It's not like you just do all your thinking inside your head and then you just simply just write it out. It's like, writing is thinking, right? It's a way of working through ideas. So I just want to, once again mention that we'll have no broadcast this coming Monday because that is Family Day. And I strongly suggest that you join the Facebook page for WASA. If you're on Facebook, then just type in WASA Education Center, WASA Distance Education Center, and like our new page. And there was an older page that we have stopped using, and we've just created a new one. So if you go to that new page, just check that out, and you'll get lots of useful reminders and tips and guidance as a WASA student. Lots of information there you need to hear about. Graduation day is June 15th, 2023. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people who are close to graduating, those who are graduating. Keep going on your journey, keep pushing forward. I know it's not easy. It's difficult to do. So, right. So I really have a lot of respect for all my students. I know just from having my conversations with you that you have a lot going on in your life. I don't think any of you are full-time students. You have family, you've got work, you got other things going on in your life. So keep going, keep fighting the good fight. I'm here to help wherever I can. So reach out to me if you got any questions. I'd love to help. So it's looking like our course schedule is right on track. Unit 1 will be finished by the end of by the end of today's class, we'll have Unit 1 wrapped up, and then we'll be jumping into Unit 2 next week. So I'll see. Unit 2 is a shorter one, but see if we can get through it in a week. If not, then we'll do a little bit into week 4, but hoping that we can tackle a unit in about a week and a half from this point on. So between a week and a half, and then leaving lots of time to talk about the final exam and the course culminating exam. So like I said, today's a Friday, so it's a bit of an unusual for us to be broadcasting on a Friday, but usually we broadcast Monday through Thursday. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 to 1:55 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can phone the number 1-800-465-7144, 737-4017. Phone into the studio. You can listen on Bell ExpressVu channel 972 and listen on 91.9 FM. And if you go to zoom.us and you type in the meeting ID, that's the number right here. That's 417-669-9799. So again, all you have to do is go to zoom.us, and then it'll ask for a meeting code or ID, and that's where you will put in 417-669-9799, and you'll get access to the Zoom, and you can watch as we do it live, and raise your hand and ask questions, and try to get as close to having this as a real classroom as possible. And of course, if watching on YouTube works for you most of the time, all the time, then you have the YouTube videos to watch. All you have to do is go to Laverty Wassa in the search bar. Type in Laverty Wassa. I'm the only one out there. It's a pretty unique YouTube handle. So go to my channel and you'll see playlists, and you'll see ENG3E playlists, ENG4E playlists, because I'm teaching those two courses in term 2A. And then you'll see my courses from last year, last term, OLC 4.0, right? So this is my first year at Wassa, so I'm building up my YouTube channel. And as I teach, my YouTube channel will grow and there'll be more videos. But if you're looking for this specific term that we're taking right now, then you'll see an ENG3E term right there, term 2A. And you'll also see Unit 1. So every course that talks about Unit 1 will be in a separate playlist. And if you're watching on YouTube, then pause the screen, take note of the ways that you can submit your work. And as always, if you have any questions about how to submit work, talk to your DEC, talk to myself. We're here to help. Do want to mention that when handing in your work, it's best to hand in it in small assignments of, say, 5 to 10. If you want to hand in less than that, that's great. The big concern for me comes in when you hand in too many assignments, and it takes me a long time to mark them. And then if you've gone too far ahead in the course, I haven't been able to give you the feedback, right? So it might seem weird for a teacher to tell you to not submit stuff, but it's definitely better for yourself and myself in the long run. I can give you more feedback, I can give you more guidance, and that guidance, if you take it, it's going to help you get better marks for your future assignments, especially for your writing assignments. And this goes, I mentioned in the last class, for like one culminating activity, right? Just hand the whole thing in, or just the rough draft if you want. I can have a look at that. But, send me a batch of assignments around 5 to 10, and send me a large activity like the culminating. And please be sure to write down your name, your community, your course code, and the assignment information. Like, is it a textbook assignment? Is it a unit assignment? What page is it listed on? All that stuff. Get in touch with me here. You can pause the screen. All this information is in your course handouts. And it can be found out by phoning your learning center or by phoning Wassa directly. 9 to 3, Monday through Friday is when you want to contact me. This is when I'm the most active. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, like on the phone or on Messenger, that's the time to do it. Aside from 1 to 3 when I'm teaching Monday through Thursday, but usually outside of those times is when I'll be at my desk and the most active and ready to respond to you right away. Or you can just send me an email, leave me a voicemail, whatever the case may be, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Here's your recommended progress by class 7, I guess class 8, 7 or 8. Good enough. Review all the course material. So review the study guide, look at all the units, complete assignments 1 through 8, and complete textbook assignments. The road ahead, page 4, and making it work, pages 13 to 15, pages 23. So that's where I suggest you should be if you've been in this course for, taking it for 2 weeks, about that, right? That's where you should be. If you're 2 weeks in and you haven't done any assignments and you haven't even read the unit, that's when you're falling behind, right? And so you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself, but at the same time, you have to strike a balance between, certain things have to get done. And if they don't get done, there will be consequences, right? So I say this because I speak from experience, and I know what it's like to have deadlines that are out there and then you don't really act on them. You just sort of let them go and go and go. And the next thing you know, it's due in 2 weeks. So you've really got to stay on top of your assignments. And this is a way of doing it. So if you've been taking this course for 2 weeks, this is about where you should be. All right, so let's jump right into today's class. So we will have, that should read, we're going to do a quote of the day. Sorry, I'm just experimenting with my. So it's going to be a quote of the day, not an article of the day. There we go. Probably not necessary, but I'm having fun with my annotation tool. So we're going to do a quote of the day. We're going to look at how to read literature. This is our assigned readings for making it work and the writing process. So I'm not really going to go into those specifically. I'm not going to refer to like specific page numbers. But again, I want to mention that if you want to complete the culminating activity and you want to get a good mark on it, and this is the way to do it. So read those two passages. They're not that long. It's only eight or 9 pages in total, right? So how to read literature, and how to read literature is mostly about the elements of fiction. So plot, conflict, and all that. And the writing process is the 5-step writing process where you plan things out, you write, you revise, you edit, and you publish. And of course, we're going to keep talking about the culminating activity. And I can get rid of my annotations. So we're going to learn about developing a rough draft for a longer writing project. Right. Yeah. So we're talking about developing a rough draft for a longer writing project, right? So step 1 really was as same with the planning process. It's you plan. So you've planned and you've created a story. You got your story planner. Now we're going to look at making a rough draft, okay? And then we're going to take notes on a writing project as it's written in real time. So that's me. So you're going to watch me do a writing project and see how I do it. And I'm going to give you some feedback along the way. So show you how I would approach the assignment, and then hopefully give you some ways that you can apply to your writing project. And so you're going to apply. You'll be successful if you can apply your understanding of the writing process to produce a first draft of your culminating activity, which road to take, right? So, I mean, in this course, we often ask you to do a rough copy and a final copy. But in the real world, a lot of writers don't just have 2. versions of a draft, they'll have, you know, many rough drafts. They'll have first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft, right? 12 or 14 or whatever. It takes a long time, right? To, depending on the length of the article, depending on the length of the piece they're writing, you know, if they're writing a novel, that novel is going to have, you know, hundreds of drafts. Like each passage and each chapter might go through, you know, dozens of revisions and dozens of different stages, right? So, but that is the writing process. That's the number one takeaway. You know, you have to apply your understanding of the writing process, but number one, you have to recognize that writing is a journey and writing is a process. And we rarely ever just write beautiful sentences just like that. You don't just put your pen in the page and start writing and then genius happens, right? It's a lot of hard work. And that's why a lot of people, you know, don't write. It is hard. So you gotta, you know, and then, you know, a lot of things that are worthwhile are hard to do, right? It's like learning how to skate or, you know, learning how to run a trap line. I'm just thinking examples from my own life, but like learning how to play an instrument, it's really hard, right? You got to do a lot of preparation just to make things happen, right? So I want you to embrace that as we move forward with today's class. So here's a quote from Philip Pullman. So again, on the fourth day of the week. So I like to do a quote of the day. This time there's two. So after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the things we need most in the world. So that's an awesome quote. I think it's true. It's and I think when he's talking about stories here, he's not just simply talking about books, and this just goes beyond books and movies and television. It's the stories that your parents told you about their life, and your aunts and uncles and your cousins tell you about their life. And you know, everything's a story, right? Like it's hard to find any aspect of what humans do that's not really a story, right? Like we're all individuals. We all have a story of our life, and our story fits in with the stories of other lives. It's all interconnected stories that are all coming together. So and we all need a good story, right? Or a story that we can believe in to get through the day. And, you know, people that suffer with anxiety and depression and mental health issues, a lot of the times is they don't like the story that they're living, or they don't believe it, or, you know, it's they tell a negative story about themselves and their situation, or they're truly living in a negative, they are living in a bad story, right? And it's hard to overcome that and to see the good in their lives. But you know, we need stories. We need things to believe in, and we need to you know, life is a story, right? It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, and unfortunately it's going to have an end, right? So everybody's life will follow that arc of a story, right? And bringing things down a little bit, every day is a story. Every day has a beginning, middle, and an end. Every week of your life has a beginning, middle, and end. Every year of your life will start, will exist, and then fade into the next thing, right? So that's constantly the story of the world, right? It's one big story, so we need them. The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. So I like that one. And this goes back to when we're talking about the theme of writing, and like the deeper meaning and what a story is really about, and what a joke is really about, right? The deeper meaning, right? So I'm not here to tell you how to think about my life, but I'm trying to give you questions to think upon, right? And so I think good writing, especially if you're writing a story about your life, the only way you're going to care about my story is if part of my story makes you think about your life and your experiences growing up, right? Because I think that's what happens, right? Is when you when you read about other people's stories, you think about your story and you make comparisons with your life, and you're like, oh yeah, so like a story about a grandma is going to make me think about my grandma, and a story about being a parent is going to make me think about my parents and me being a parent, and stories about hockey are going to make me think about my experiences on the ice, right? So it's not like here's my truth, this is what it is. It's like, so you're not telling the readers how to think. You're just, and this comes down to like showing, not telling, right? You just sort of show the reader what your life is like. And I think the truth will kind of speak for itself, right? If you think carefully about what you want to say, and if you write really good scenes, and if you bring the reader into your story, right? So we'll get upon this, right? I might be getting a little carried away here, so there's nobody here to wrestle me down, so it's a lot easy for me to get out of hand down here in the studio. But yeah, I love stories. I love writing. I love the process of it. I love having the finished product. I'm not gonna lie. I do love finishing a story, but yeah, I do love this quote, but that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to reach somebody. And so just keep that in mind, right? There is a reader to your writing, and even if that reader is just me, and I really hope that it goes beyond me. If you don't want to share, then it'll stay with me, and I never share students' work with anybody. The only time I ever would is I would use your writing as an example. But even then, I would take the name off, and it would just be like a text, and you wouldn't know who wrote it. But always think of your writing as having an audience, right? Always think of it as having that purpose of getting out there in the world and changing somebody else, and telling the truth, even if it's just your truth, and even if your audience is just you a year from now. Trust me, that person is going to really appreciate that you took the time to write this, to write what you're going to write for your culminating activity, okay? All right, I can keep going on that, but I will keep clicking. Okay. So just a reminder, you've got a title page with 5 marks. That includes a graphic, a picture, or a sketch. It's got your name, the course code, a date on it, the rough draft, and the final copy. So, and keep in mind, your final copy has got to be different than your rough draft. That's the whole point, right? So your rough draft can be rough, okay? It's just, think of your rough draft as like an exploration, right? It's like, it's a first try. Oh, excuse me. Whew. It's a template, it's a prototype, it's an idea, it's a first attempt. It's like, it's hard to like know where you want to go until you have some ideas on the page, right? And it's like, well, there it is. That's what I want to do. It's like a mock-up. It's like, and it can be almost be there. So it depends. Like some if you just do a rough draft and a final draft, sometimes the rough draft can be pretty close and it just needs a little bit of tweaking. Sometimes the rough draft is like really far away from what the final draft becomes, right? So again, we're using writing as a way of thinking about where we want to go. And sometimes you just got to see it and be like, okay, I like that part of it. I don't like that. I wish I had more parts about this. And I really wish I wouldn't have said that, because, you'll have a conversation with yourself, and it's like, it's almost like if you were like making a sculpture or something like that. And like, you got this big brick of clay, and it could be anything, and it's just way too wide open. But imagine you spent like 10 or 15 minutes molding it into a certain shape. And now it's like kind of getting somewhere. And then you can be like, yeah, okay, that's cool. I like where it's going. I'm going to keep going in that direction. Or you might be like, you know what? I don't like where this is going. Maybe it should be more like this, and it should like go over this way. I have this experience all the time as a hockey coach, where I'll have like a drill that I want my students or my players to do. And then a few repetitions into it, I'm like, no, this doesn't work. But there's always like some unexpected thing that happens and you're like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know they would react like that. Maybe what the drill is really about is this. Sorry, I'll put myself on mute next time I blow my nose, just realizing that. Please bear with me. I'm not 100%. I'm glad I'm in the office or in the basement here and not, hopefully not getting my coworker sick, but I'm feeling great, but I still got a bit of a runny nose. But yeah, I expect drafts to be rough, right? That's what they're for, but they should be written in full sentences, okay? Write your draft in full sentences and then come back to it for your final draft and then make improvements as you see fit. You're the writer, you're in charge. So just a little recap here. So we talked about this in last class. So these are the elements of narrative, right? And so narrative is storytelling. So storytelling can be fiction, it can be nonfiction. So a personal essay is, of course, nonfiction. It really happened. But oftentimes personal essays will take the form of fiction, and they'll be very similar to fiction. So characters are, of course, the people or other imagined beings who are involved in the conflict of our story. The plot is what happens. So it's a series of actions or events experienced by the characters. So what are your scenes? What actions do you want to write about? Settings is where the story takes place, one or multiple locations. Problem is a problem to be solved by the protagonist, the main character. And theme is what the story is about on a deep level. And the narrative is who tells the story and how they tell it. So that's, the narrator is the storyteller. In this case, it's you are the narrator. So it's, remember we talked about that last class as a first person narrative. I don't know why I said it so formally, narrative. So now that we have our plot, setting, theme, and conflict and characters. So if you haven't done this yet, you got to go back to class 7. Make sure you do this. So get yourself a plot, a setting, a theme, a conflict, and characters. You need to have all those things, okay? You need those 5 elements, okay? You have to have them figured out. Then you need to place the reader inside the story by giving them details, okay? So you're going back and showing you in a specific time in your life or telling us where you are now before you go back. Because no matter what, you're going back in the past on this one. You're going to the past to tell a story. So you could write about the physical location, why you're there, what's on your mind. If you can't remember what it was like, make it up. Who you're with, and then introduce the conflict, right? So that's what I would suggest to you. Introduce the story, let us know who's involved, okay, and then go from there. So talked about this last class, didn't really have much of a chance to to finish it. Sorry, I just want to figure out how to get rid of this thing. There we go. So how to write a scene using paragraphs. So we have 3 kinds of paragraphs, basically what you're writing. So you can use exposition, description. So you can describe things, and this is like the external world. So tell us the world your character exists in. You can do narrative, which is sort of when you speak in that I voice and you tell the readers your inner thoughts. So I want you to imagine a voiceover in a movie, or imagine someone telling a story to a bunch of friends. So you're telling the reader what was going through your mind, your inner thoughts, the way you feel, etc. And then you also might want to write a dialogue if you want. You could write a scene. You could write a scene between you and someone else, or you can just like talk about lines or like words you've heard before, and that way it in a way it's a conversation, right? Especially if we're talking about how people have shaped us, right? So if you're talking about your grandfather or your mom or your brother, And you can say like, these are the things they taught me, or this is something he always said, right? And that's the basis for a lot of personal essays, right? It's like a really important line from their childhood that like someone always said, or like some nugget of wisdom, or like something, right? Like, so it could be done that way, right? So, but basically you're right, you need to write scenes. So things we can describe, we can start talking about ourselves, we can talk about the setting, or we can start moving the plot along, right? So tell the reader about what's your character, that's you, what you want out of life in that moment, in life in general. And once you start putting the character in a scene and saying what they want, you know, it starts to get the movie rolling, right? It starts to get the plot going and the conflict and the theme. And that's where like the theme of a story emerges, right? It's through numerous examples and numerous events happen. We start to see what the story is really about, right? And a conflict is usually resolved over a bunch of scenes. There's going to be like one major conflict of the story, and there may be like little mini conflicts involved in that, like any kind of action movie. There's going to be a conflict where the good guys want to do something, but there's the bad guys who they have to stop, or they're going to get in their way. And there's a bunch of like minor conflicts that lead up to the really big one. Remember, we had that the rising action, things kind of go up, they dip, they go up, they dip, they go up to the big climax, they dip down a bit, and then the story ends, right? So you have lots of little actions that lead up to like bigger actions. You know, more technically, they call that pacing. Like in a TV show, they don't give you everything all at once, right? There's quiet parts, there's loud parts, there's really dramatic moments, right? So, but everything can't be dramatic from start to finish. You got to kind of like set the reader up and introduce certain ideas. But this is like the elite kind of storytelling here, right? So this will come with time, but like that's kind of what you're going for, right? So again, I like to think about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy, they usually have like a joke that'll have like a funny part, and then a really big payoff, right? So it's like a build up, and then a really funny part, right? So you're building up to something, right? So there should be like a big moment in the in the story, or like, you know, something big that happens to you, right? Yeah. And so what I did here was I also used another graphic organizer, and in this case it's a this is first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. So my first paragraph might be descriptions about myself as a young man, where I live, my home life, general timeline, playing hockey, old enough to get a job, idolizing Patrick Waugh, me working at a movie theater, second paragraph, third paragraph, going to Winnipeg to buy equipment, and the fourth paragraph, what I learned from the experience, right? And then I might want to, like, you know, if I write my first paragraph, then I might want to do like some notes here. You might want to just jump into the writing, but if you want, you can always do a bit more planning, you know. So I'm going to say, you know, getting my Patrick Waugh hockey card autographed, being shy to meet him, not saying anything, you know, living with my parents in a small town, being a goalie, you know, throwing a ball against the wall. So I'm just jotting down my ideas, right? So sometimes this is really helpful to you if you want to like plot out, like, I'm going to do a paragraph about this, then a paragraph about that, and then a paragraph about this. And then you can also plot it out. So like this paragraph is going to have 4 sentences, and maybe I'll have 5 or 7 later, but at least I can get these 4 down. So I could do a sentence about, you know, that, a sentence about this, you know, just as an example, right? Let's see here. Let's go to and then maybe, you know, I could do a sentence about getting a job, you know, at the Mayfair Theater, applying, knowing my friends were there. And then maybe I could have a sentence about, you know, earning money through mowing the lawn, babysitting, etc. Right? So, and this is helpful for me. So I don't know if it's going to be 100% helpful for you, but I'd like you to give it a shot. This is what we call like a paragraph planner, a sentence planner. And again, I'm just giving myself some notes on how I want to approach this thing, right? Okay, so with that in mind, I am going to jump back into my Word document here. So this is where we were yesterday. Sorry. Put myself on mute here. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so this is where I left things off yesterday. So it was culminating activity, which road to take, my story planner. So I've got my plot, my setting, conflict. And so as I was just, again, I didn't know how I was going to do this today, but as I was talking about it, I remembered that card that I got Patrick Waugh to autograph, right? So so this is going to be me writing a scene. Okay, so here we go, writing a scene. Okay, there we go. So so I'm thinking like I don't know, I'm just gonna start writing because I don't know what to say. But I'm gonna say, you know, one of my childhood photos features me holding a hockey card that was just signed by Patrick Waugh. He, you know, let's see, me at the age, I'll just say, I think it was 10. I could be wrong. I think I was 10 or I'll say 11. Me at the age of 11, holding a hockey card that was just signed by Patrick Waugh. I was too shy to say anything. So all I did was hand him a pen and that card. He smiled down at me. He looked to be about 12 feet tall to me, and then handed it back before signing the other people's cards. I don't know, I might say something like, you know, at that age, talking to any adult was difficult. You know, even talking to people my own age could be a challenge. I'm trying to paint a scene. So I'm trying to think of the setting here. So I think this was in Dryden, Ontario. No, sorry, this was the Winnipeg Arena. In front of the team bus. It was after a team practice that we got to watch, which was super cool. So the characters are myself, Patrick Waugh. I'm gonna say possibly my dad, who was there with me. Let's see, and then so there's that. So just kind of setting the tone. And this could potentially be where I want to start this thing. So and that could be enough just for now, right? Just to have that. Let's go to my review. That's already 88 words, right? I'm almost up to 100 words, right? So it's something, right? And then I might do something like this, like scenes. You know, Patrick Waugh signs cards, describing the photo. And then I might want to have a scene where it's like me working at the theater, making popcorn, filling drinks, watching movies, interacting with the customers and my co-workers and boss. Another scene could be me at home throwing a tennis ball against the wall, watching Patrick Waugh on the TV, playing hockey. You know, I know I keep it at the house on the TV. And then in Winnipeg at an equipment store, you know, buying a new Levin blocker with my own money, which was really awesome, right? So there you go. So what I've done here is I've just identified some scenes that I could watch, I could write to make this thing come alive, right? And so like what you're doing is you're setting a scene, putting the reader there, like trying to make them picture me, a little boy, getting Patrick Waugh to sign this card. And then you're kind of giving comments on the scene, right? So it's like when you read a novel, all you get is the scene, and you don't really get the narrator like talking about the scene. Sometimes you do. I guess that's not true, contrary to myself already. But you know what I mean? Like, so you're putting the reader in a specific spot, right? And you're using details, right? And trying to paint a scene, right? So using visuals, you know, just what it felt like, right? So So that's one approach you could do. Just get like a bunch of and then you're just going to string those scenes together and then try to make some meaning out of it that way, if that makes sense, right? So we just simply start writing a scene, you know, once we've got our outline, and then we can write a scene, right? So we can write scenes. We can try to do a free write. I would also suggest doing something like this. Let's call this, let's go right to them. I'm going to call this free writing to find my theme, my main idea. So since your writing assignment is gonna answer these questions, and you might want to just try answer them and just see where it leads you, and just see what kind of territory it leads you down, right? So were you? Yeah, so I'm gonna say I was a 12-year-old boy who was working at his first paid job. Aside from mowing the lawn or babysitting, I'm gonna say I was, I guess I was, you know, I was mostly happy with life, but I was very shy and often felt isolated from other people. I had a small group of friends, but crowds freaked me out, and I was known for being a quiet and creative young kid. So how did others shape you? You know, I often dreamed of playing in the NHL, being a great goalie, leading a team to a Stanley Cup. I don't know. I also listen to a lot of music and imagined myself as a rock star. So I guess I had fantasies where I was the star attraction. You know, maybe this helped me deal with being shy or nervous, anxious. And how did you or do you shape the world? Okay. Let's see. Well, I did get out and got a job that was really hard on me at first, and it was, right? So I had to deal with angry or stressed out people at the concession stand. I had to deal with a hard boss who wanted the best out of her young staff. Right, but and then I guess at the end I went out and got something I wanted. and it felt great to do that. So I don't know. So again, you're just sort of having a conversation with yourself. You're just jotting things down. I may use one of that. I might use one idea from there. I might use none of it, but it's just sort of giving me the best, the best sort of strategy for moving forward with my assignment. So now I've got 500 words written here, right? So now, and then I can start to see a story developing and where I'd want to take it. So I think after doing that, I might, so this is like, I did my planning, I did a bit of writing. Now I'm in stage 3 of the writing process, which is, step 3 of the writing process is, revision. Because when you reorganize what you've already written, think about the overall organization of your essay. This is, big picture stuff. Okay, hopefully we can all read that. There you go. Okay. So I would, at this point, I might do something like this, like paragraph 1 is going to be, it's going to be about describing me at the age of 11. Paragraph 2 was going to be about let's see, how did I have that? Go back to my all right, so description of me as a young man, movie theater, buying the equipment, and sort of wrap it up. Okay. That still sounds about right. And then that's going to be like, wrapping things up, maybe talk about me now. I don't know. Still playing hockey. Still shy sometimes. And dealing with anxiety, self-doubt. Yeah, so I might do something like this, right? Just sort of plot it out that way. And then I might, and again, I might add a paragraph. I might have a 5-paragraph essay, but I think I could probably do it in 4, especially for an assignment of this length, so that I've got my, and then I can see how each one leads into the next. We introduce the problem of wanting goalie equipment like my hero, but not having enough money, right? So you see how that directly goes into paragraph 2. So working my first job at the movie theater, how I confronted being shy and being shy and uncomfortable in my journey to getting that money, which of course directly leads into, you know, I don't know, like setting up a bank account, depositing money into it, saving up, and finally driving to Winnipeg. And I could even go back to my scenes up here. Remember, I had written down some scenes. I could sort of copy that and say, like, you know, I got to write a scene in here. Oops. You know, working a rush before the movie, busy, panic, you know, talking to adults. Again, we already had the scene of you know, me getting cards signed. Maybe a scene could be, you know, me at home bouncing a ball against the wall, training to be a goalie. Yeah, and so that's basically how it goes. And then you just start filling in the blanks and you kind of see what has to be told. And then, so that's basically, that's my setup. The problem is introduced. You see how I solved the problem. And then hopefully you see how, you know, like maybe the real problem I was solving was not getting goal equivalent. Maybe the real problem, the theme of my story, was sort of like overcoming shyness and getting out there in the world. And then maybe have like a paragraph at the end about, you know, who I am right now. And there you go. That's my outline. All I gotta do is fill in the blanks. But the main thing it does is it keeps you accountable and it keeps you on track and it gives you a focus and it keeps your writing focused. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a great family day. Take care.